അവിടുന്ന് വൈകുന്നേരം പണത്തിൽ എന്നെ അവർ മാനസികമായിട്ടുള്ള
Hey everyone, it's Sam, and welcome back to the 911 Nonsense podcast. To stay in the loop, learn about upcoming guests, and join in the conversations with the Noon community, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And hey, if you like what you hear in this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means the world to us. Join us on this episode of Noon to meet Lorraine, a dedicated paramedic and peer-to-peer program manager with an inspiring story. Lorraine moved from Ireland to the US and shares the challenges she faced during the transition. She also recounts some incredible experiences from her time with the Red Cross, offering a unique perspective on both her personal and professional journey. Don't miss this insightful episode as we delve into Lorraine's story and the impact she's making in the EMS community. Let's get started. All right, Lorraine, thank you so much for joining us on the Nude podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
That is fantastic. I know you are a super busy person, so thank you so much for coming out to join me.
You're so welcome. It's my privilege to be here.
Can I go ahead and get an introduction?
Sure. So my name is Lorraine Olahan. I am a paramedic currently in New Jersey. I've been in EMS for way too many years. I'm originally from Ireland. I used to work with the Irish Red Cross for many, many years. I was an EMT in Ireland, which is similar to your advanced EMT here. And I ran 2 counties with their EMS services and their community outreach programs. I was area directors for 2 consecutively for the Irish Red Cross for a number of years. And I've always been involved one way or another within either medical or holistic healing professions.
That's so cool. So how did you end up in New Jersey?
It took a country crashing.
Okay.
So we had the crash in 2008, 2009. I had my own training company at the time, and I was working, and I could see it coming actually before it happened, because a lot of the small businesses that are required to have occupational first aid and various things that I trained in were shutting down. They were disappearing. So my 2-year rotation of clients that I would reach out to and go, hey, your certs are going to be up for your staff in the next 3 to 6, weren't there anymore. They literally were just dissolved or bankrupt or gone to ground. And I was like, what is going on? Initially, I thought they just didn't want to train. And I'm like, this is not how. So I reached out to a couple of the other trainers around the country, and they're like, no, this is bad. We are on a third of the people that we used to have. In the meantime, I had been over here on vacation. I have family in Ohio, and my children had loved it, and they were like, let's just go live in America. I'm like, don't throw down something you don't wish for, you don't want.
Yeah.
So we spent 3 weeks here and toured and did some various things and had a lot of fun. And I went back and I started looking. I was like, okay, let's get a contingency plan here. And I was a single mom of 3 children. So I looked up stuff, and obviously there's no reciprocity. I know I said that wrong. I don't like that word.
Reciprocity. Yeah.
That one. Yeah. So I had to start from scratch. So I did the online, Millville had an online hybrid course. So the 10, 12-week course, whatever it was, I did it in 3 weeks because my grandmother broke her back. Life threw everything at me. I was doing 101 things. So I stayed up every night for 3 weeks and just banged out all of the modules, all of the course, passed the whole thing, came here, did my practical assessments and my written exams and passed. And then I was offered a job, but I couldn't take the job because I didn't have the right visa stuff and all of that. Anyway, went home, long story short, and the country declares bankruptcy and decides that it's going to be bailed out by the bonds, which my children will pay indentured servitude for the next 600 years. But that's economics.
Yeah.
So at the same time, I was actually on the panel because paramedicine in Ireland is run by the government. So I literally was on the next intake panel to train as a paramedic in Ireland. I had insider information. because of my position within the Irish Red Cross, and most of the top people were actually like regional or area directors of the National Health Ambulance Service, I already knew that the government was shutting it down. So when I got offered the position to train as a paramedic here, I took it with both hands. I went back, I got all of the documentation I needed, I did all of the interview processes, I got the visas, and came back. And that's how I ended up in New Jersey and did the paramedic program with Virtuous School back then. And when they asked me who, like, because of my standing within the program and the system at home, the licensing board were like, what school are you going to? So I was like, they're called Virtua. I don't really know much about them except that they're linked to the EMT thing that I just did. And they're like, no, that's okay. You can come back to us, because there is the other way. We will take paramedics from America. It really depends, though, on your hours and certain, the drug learning that you do and stuff like that. So they were like, no, we can take you back. If you were going, and this is no disrespect to any other state, to a different state where there was maybe less, or shall I say, a bare minimum of training done.
A lower standard of, requirements.
Yes. Then they would be like, you would have to do extra work when you came back. So I'm like, okay, no worries. And then they said, don't come back. We're all going to be on our knees. We're all going to be.
That's crazy.
I'm like, thanks, guys. I thought you liked me.
Yeah.
And they were like, we do. We just don't want to see you put all that work in and come back here and work for nothing, which is basically. So back there, my starting salary here as a brand new paramedic equated to a 5-year senior paramedic at home. And at home, you can't have 2 jobs. Like here, you can be a paramedic in 3 different organizations in your state or anywhere you like. In Europe, you can't do that. Or, well, in Ireland, you can't do that. If you want to work for another organization, you have to either go to the north and work for an English company, or you have to go to England. So a lot of my colleagues, to make money, because we were in the shits, would do their 3 12-hour shifts at home, jump on Ryanair, which is like your Spirit Airlines here, and go and do it 24 hours in the UK, come back, have 1 day's sleep, and start back into work.
Oh, man.
And they were doing that for years just to keep their heads above water and not lose their homes. The only decent thing about the whole thing, about all of that, was if your home is your primary residence in Ireland, the law and the constitution states it can't be taken from you. So they couldn't evict people that were living in their primary residential home, but they could take everything else.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
It's a very sliver of a silver lining.
Has it gotten any better since you've left?
I've only been home once for an emergency situation, and prices and things never went back to where they were. Like when people bump up prices, they just keep them there. Oh, things are getting better again. We should reduce it. The price of oil. It's $100 a barrel. It's never been that before. Well, now it's only $60 a barrel again. Yay. But the gas price at the tank is still the same.
Yeah.
It never re-rectified itself. It never took they just kept taking. A lot of people left. We were losing, at one point at the height of it all, we were losing 500 people a day.
Wow.
The country suffered big time. Quite a lot of people have come home. There was a big push about 3 years ago. I'm here 10 years. So there was a big push about 3 years ago of, welcoming people back and giving them incentives. Not much, but incentives. So people that went to Australia and stuff like that. And but some of my family members that had been away for a few years have moved home again. So, yeah. It's improving slowly, but it's a country of like hardship and prosperity. The Celtic Tiger was the best thing that ever hit us. We didn't know what to do with money, so we screwed ourselves.
Yeah.
Will we learn the lesson? Probably not.
Probably not.
We like to have a good time. You want a great party, invite an Irishman.
Yes. That's so funny.
You don't know when to start, when to stop, or when to go home.
Yeah.
And our greatest trick is we walk in backwards and everybody thinks we're leaving. So that's great.
Oh, that's awesome. So you said that when you were coming over here, that you were coming over as basically an advanced EMT. And that tells me that maybe your level of education up there is a little bit higher than it is, because that's the base level for you, right? That's the starting level.
Yeah, yeah, that was our base. I had to go back to basic
Okay.
and take all of those exams again, which thankfully wasn't too bad. Um, you name drugs differently. That was a real kicker.
What do you mean?
You call them different names. Your generic names for drugs and our generic name for drugs are a little bit different. Considering you make them and sell them to us,
Yeah.
it's a real cheat. Um, and drug dosages. So where I thought I would breeze through, my pharmacology when I was in school, I was like, what did you do?
What did you,
So,
what is wrong with these numbers?
oh, do you want a really funny story?
Yes, always.
When I came here first, obviously I went to college. I did an associate's degree. When you go to Camden County College in Blackwood, you I'm sure you probably do it in every college, like entrance qualify, like you do the English and the math and the whatever.
Yeah.
I failed English 5 times. You drop letters out of the words. What's wrong with you? You take all the U's and you chuck them in a bucket. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm failing English. The bursar came and watched me type my thing because it's all in a computer.
Uh-huh.
And the computer's set for American English. So I'm typing all the answers and I'm writing my little paragraph. And I will admit, I do forget full stops and commas and all that every so often.
Sure.
But, and he's like, he gave me all my money back. I'll just preface that too. He's sitting there and he comes out and he goes, this is my 5th attempt. And he's like, we don't understand what's going on. You're breaking the system. I'm like, how can I be breaking the damn system? It's
Breaking
English.
the system.
So he sits there and it spews out the information to him and he goes, oh. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh. He goes, we spell things differently. I went, no shit. I said, I was a crap speller at home. I said, you make me look like a genius, but I fail. He laughed so fucking hard. I'm like, this is not, I was irate. This was not funny. So then he said, I can't overwrite the computer, but I could put you in as an English as a second language person and then you'd be fine. I'm like, no, not happening. What do you think you're talking about? So I took English 101 and 102.
And what did you learn?
Nothing. I learned how to dupe the computer. That's what I learned. And how to do it effectively and efficiently.
How to turn on autocorrect?
Yeah. And how to what's that thing? Perl? No. Grammarly, but there's another one. I think it's called Perl or something weird. And how to use that. And I would put everything through that and it would spit it back to me and I would put it into the machine. We were all good.
Isn't it funny? And now, like, I don't know if you use it, but have you heard of ChatGPT? And now everybody uses ChatGPT and you don't need to know anything, right?
Exactly. Well, that's not true. I know posts. When I look at stuff on the social media platforms, I know what's written by a human being and what's not.
That's good. It's good to know the difference.
ChatGPT misses stuff, and people assume because it's a computer that it's all correct. They should read it.
It's true.
And they should take all the little emojis out because it's a big giveaway. All those little, what's the favorite one of it? A rocket. All those little rockets and all those little it's a dead giveaway. You're using ChatGPT. Seriously? No normal human being is going to sit at the end of every sentence and put a damn emoji. Anyway, me and ChatGPT have a whole thing.
Sounds like it. I'm sorry I brought it up. I like ChatGPT, but it does require quite a bit of editing. Yeah, like it has great options.
The editing, definitely. But I learned a new thing as well, is that when you're doing it, if you ask it, so my son taught me this, ask it to write it in the way that you want. So it's write me a professional blah, blah, blah. Then when it's written it, this is great, thank you. Please rewrite and then edit it. So it's almost like what we do in paramedics when you're doing disease process funneling. When you're at a patient, you got to use the same premise with that thing. our patients at least nod or say no or swear. Thankfully, this thing
Sometimes,
just
yeah.
goes did, and you have to keep doing it. So it's harder work. Sometimes I wonder, should I just type?
I agree. Sometimes it is easier because going through it can be just a pain in the butt.
Mm.
So, how do you feel now about being a paramedic here in the States? Like, well, is there a two-tier system in Ireland? So, did you have EMS and the fire department was completely separate?
So the fire department are all taught basic life support, as in not EMT, but they are taught. And please forgive me because I'm speaking as when I left.
Sure.
I'm not aware if they've upgraded it since. There is one caveat: Dublin Fire Brigade, best fire brigade in the entire world. All of their fire people are minimum EMT, which is the advanced EMT at home, or paramedic. And the training process that they go through, and they're the only separate entity within the state of Ireland that delivers 911. And they are amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know UK keeps it separate.
Yeah, they're the only entity, and they can transport as well within the area of Dublin. So they actually run ambulances in Dublin and support 911 in Dublin, as well as the fire service in inner city and stuff like that. So that's the only caveat. And their instructors are phenomenal, like so knowledgeable and so able to drive it home. The rest is ambulance based. So you'll have two paramedics, or now. So a few years ago, before I left, they decided, some bright spark in Dublin decided, we don't need EMTs, we just need paramedics. So they allowed EMTs to we have a two-tier with paramedics, or we had. They allowed the EMTs to upgrade to paramedic basic, and then they ran classes for what they called advanced paramedics, which is basically our, as you are here in America,
Mm-hmm.
RSI, intubation, IV, all of that. That was your advanced paramedic, any intervening situation. And your paramedic did your 12 leads, did your IVs as long as the other one was with them. And the drugs were the same as long as an EMT, I could administer morphine. I just needed to have a paramedic or a doctor in my line of sight or within earshot.
Sure.
So they would have, so you would have, at that point in time, you could have like a paramedic and an advanced paramedic on an ambulance. If you required a cardiac ambulance, you got two advanced paramedics. Now they have brought back EMTs, but they've actually made them a little bit more up than they used to be. And they're calling them like, I can't remember what the term is that they use now, but they're going to the non-life threat. So your broken legs, your broken arms, and your falls that are not, depending on what the situation is. They may send out two EMTs in an ambulance for that, but everything is ambulance based. Some cities, Cork, Dublin, Galway, and Limerick, do have chase trucks, which are like cars basically, with an advanced paramedic on board, and they will go to a scene, multiple car incident, or home incident or whatever. Bear in mind, there is no such thing in Ireland as an ambulance getting to you within 8 minutes. It doesn't happen.
Really?
You can wait anything from 15 to 50 minutes, even in a city, because if it gets stuck in traffic or it's in the wrong place, it can take that much longer to get to you.
Wow.
So you're not getting an ambulance in 8 minutes. We have a lot of community first responders. So your DFib, your basic life support, DFibs are a big thing over there. I was instrumental in setting up ones in at least 4 of the areas around where I lived.
And you're saying DFib, is that like an AED?
Yeah, sorry.
So a very
yeah.
basic
Yeah.
AED.
Slap it
Okay.
on, wait for it, and follow the instructions. And they're taught CPR, and they're taught mouth to mouth or mask to mouth, whatever it is.
Yeah. Please don't do
Back
mouth
in the
to mouth
day,
anymore.
we used to teach them you can stick a hole in a crisp packet and shove that over and just blow
in the
through it.
crisp packet.
Yeah. we're very basic.
There's nothing
So
wrong with that, but oh my gosh.
hope to God they're not allergic to salt or something.
Yeah, right.
So yeah,
Wow.
so that's yeah. You really you're rural when you're rural, and even in a town, you're not necessarily going to get what you think you're going to get. So yeah,
So which system because do you work in a two-tier system now or even a single
yeah.
tier? Okay. Which system do you think is better?
I like the system in New Jersey, purely because even if we as paramedics get there and it's not, we're not required. Either the EMTs have the opportunity to recall us, or we can triage back to them as long as obviously everything's within a certain range. Um, and it means that we're then freed up for the next one. Some people, I think, sometimes look at it like, oh, you just want to get off so you don't have to deal with the call. I give you a classic example. My partner and I were working in Atlantic City one night, and we went to a call, and as we pulled up, they were walking the patient out. I can't even remember what the call was for. And they were walking the patient out. And as they were coming out the door with the patient, the EMT did a whole, across the throat sign to say we weren't needed. And we said, are we recalled? We're very particular. And they said yes. So as the EMT was saying that, cued the mic and let dispatch know that we were recalled. Literally, our butts were not back in the seats when we were dispatched to an allergic reaction, which was, thank God for the patient, 2 blocks around the corner. We jumped in the truck, drove the 2 blocks around the corner. We were there before EMS. We go into the home, and this guy is there, and it's your classic example. The welts are literally coming up all over his chest, and his neck is swelling. And then I'm looking, I'm like, so you do it without thinking. You follow your protocol. You do your administrations, and all the time I'm like, there was a little language barrier. I don't speak Spanish. I probably should learn. And so there was, and I don't even know if that was the language that was being bantied, but the wife was in one end and there was somebody else another, and they were all screaming at each other. And we just needed him not to keel over before the stretcher got here. And he was doing a really good job at trying. And anyway, long story short, it worked out that he suddenly, overnight, decided to be allergic to watermelon.
Wow, that's random.
And totally. And there was watermelon juice in his drink. He didn't even eat it. I don't know that that was correct or quite right, but that's the story we ended up with after we got him into the hospital and he got sorted out. But he needed monitoring for a while. It was difficult.
It sounds like it was getting very critical very fast.
Oh, allergic. It was a genuine allergic reaction.
Are you guys allowed to crike?
Yes.
Okay. Was that sitting in the back of your head like, I'm gonna have to crike this guy?
Have you ever cried?
Yeah,
It's messy.
it is nasty. Yeah,
I
it's
look at it
really
and I'm
messy.
like, we work harder and faster because we can't do
You
this
don't
here.
want to crike, yeah. You don't want to get to that point.
Exactly. I'm like, and the people in the background are already screaming at 10 decibels, 20 decibels. If I start pulling out a thing and sticking it in his throat, I'm going to be looking something sticking between my shoulder blades.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, would I? Absolutely, 100%, no problem. And I
If
need all new
if it
clothes,
got
and I
to
need,
that point, yeah,
of
you
course,
would.
yeah. But we were doing everything we could not to get to that point, obviously.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
it's a driving it's a driving force when the sphincter muscle tightens and you're like the blotches are coming up and they're like welts, and I'm like, just shove another one of those into him and see.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I don't miss those days so much. So as of last week, I have reached 46 countries. So I would like to hear from anybody who's listening what kind of systems they have and if they have comparisons to how the United States is, if, which one they consider is better. Um, this is so random. I follow a group on Facebook called the Dull Men's Club. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but there's a lot of people from UK and they talk a lot about the firefighters being completely separated from EMS.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such a weird concept to me, coming from my background, because to even be a firefighter, like to be considered a firefighter, you had to be an EMT. So what do firefighters do if 80% of their time isn't tied up with EMS?
Sit on their arses.
Sit on their asses.
You know you're making me a marked woman, don't you?
Hey, you said you've only been home once in the last 10 years, so.
I just became a grandmother. I'm hoping to go home next month.
Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. They do training. I mean, yeah. It's well, okay. So Ireland has one of the highest road deaths in Europe, as far as I'm aware. I don't think that's unfair. I mean, we used to have the highest suicide rate too, but they don't need to worry about that anymore. They just kill themselves on the roads. And I don't mean that as flippantly as it sounded, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
So
is there a reason for that? Like,
they drive
is
like
it a
assholes.
speed thing? Okay. Okay.
They get behind the wheel of a car at 16 and think that they're invincible, and that the brick wall that they hit at 120 miles an hour is suddenly going to disappear and jump up into a fluffy smoky thing. I don't know. God help me. I worked with Rally Ireland and Motorsport Ireland, and those guys empty their bladders before they go around a circuit because they don't want to crash with a full bladder and have it rupture. Yet 16-year-olds manage to make shit of their cars on a straight road in the middle of the day with nobody looking. I don't know. It beggars belief.
Oh, man.
Bless them. So they see a lot of not good stuff. So while they're not doing the EMS side of it, I mean, they're mostly trained in very, very basic first aid. And they will step back from it. I mean, I've taken care of people on the side of the street in my hometown where the chief fire officer stood looking at me till I threw a few fucks at him and told him to go get the equipment I needed. And he came back and put it down beside me, and I went, you can open the damn fucking bag too. And I mean, we're friends. I got on with him, but my kids needed to go places and they're sitting in the car and I'm having to deal with this guy who's spewing whole pieces of chicken all over me. Like, seriously? Cut me some slack here. And God help us, the locum doctor comes down in a mini skirt and a 6-inch heels and puts the suction unit the wrong way together, so it's blowing down the man's throat. I mean, you cannot make this shit up. So I decided I taught the fire brigade first aid.
Oh my God.
And the fire chief, John, said, well, you know what? I'm so grateful for you doing that, but I'm still not getting down on my knees on the floor in the town. What can I say?
You can't blame anybody. Yeah, you can't blame anybody.
We can only work to our strength.
Oh, that was so funny. I can't even. So what's one of the funniest things you've ever seen?
What's some of the weirdest things I've seen?
I feel like you and I have a very similar sense of humor, so this should be fantastic.
One of the most painful was the guy who jumped out without looking, and he landed on the railing. So, on the railings, no, you don't have railings here, really, do you?
Is that a railroad?
No, a fence. So it's a metal fence, and it's about every 8 inches. You have a metal rod coming up, and then you have a piece across the top that holds it all together. And I think they're called finials. I don't really know. That's a fancy old English word. But it's sort of shaped like, they call them feathers, actually, but it doesn't look like a feather at all. It's sort of like a pointy bit, and then there's 2 extra bits. I suppose really it looks like a prick and balls, but it doesn't officially because it's flat. But it's the only way I can try to describe this thing that's visual. Anyway, this guy jumped out a window without looking and landed ass first on it.
Why was he jumping out? Was he running, or was he why?
Let's just say it wasn't his bed, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning.
That's what I figured. Okay.
Yeah. So we get caught. The fire brigade gets sent. And it's in a part of town where he really shouldn't have been in that window anyway. And he definitely shouldn't have jumped out that window because the railing was the least of his problems. But it's stuck. And the ambulance, not a hope. There's nothing coming for half an hour, 45 minutes.
Oh, man.
So I had a little code with my local police officers. I was going for chocolate. It meant I had to get my jump bag, get my ass in the car and help.
Okay.
It was from being in the wrong place at the right time or the right place at the wrong time too many times. So my local sergeant was like, Lorraine. Oh, it happened the very first, no, not the very first time, but the one time when I lost my shit. It was at a motorbike versus um, a coach, and it was full of, wait for it, trainee nurses and doctors.
Oh my goodness.
And they were all on the side of the road spewing their guts up. I mean,
Yeah.
the kid made shite of himself, but he still was alive. He needed actual medical help. And here was all of these certifications puking in the ditch. And I actually was going for chocolate that day.
So it wasn't a joke.
It wasn't a joke. And I'm in a pair of flip-flops and a pair of shorts because I just got this urge. And I said, kids, I think I'm going to go grab some chocolate. I said, I'm going to go into Lidl because Lidl at home does really good chocolate. I'm digressing a little. So I go into this, I head and the road's closed. And I'm like, what the hell? And my son was after leaving the house about 10 minutes earlier. Never dawned on me as a mother that he might be involved in what was going on up there. But as I'm getting into the queue, he phones me and he says, where are you? I said, I literally just decided after you walked out, I fancied chocolate. I said, and you didn't answer your phone. I said, so I'm going to Lidl to get some. He goes, it's because I'm stuck in a stream of traffic. I've only just got through it. He goes, you need to get your ass out to this road. I'm like, why? He goes, Mum, the guy's in big fucking trouble and there's nobody helping him. I'm like, okay, I'm on the road. So I said, where are you? He said, I've just passed the actual accident. I said, stop. I said, go back to the police officer. I said, who's on? And he knew the sergeant. I said, tell him I'm like 15 cars back. He's like, he's sending her down to you. I'm like, okay. He said, drive on the wrong side and come up. I was like, okay. So I pull out, driving up. I always had my jump bag in the car. So I pull up, we take care, we package the guy up. And I look up and I'm like, who are all of these people? The sergeant leans down and goes, these are the future of medicine. They're all doctors and fucking nurses in training. And I'm like, well, you could have put some ass up them. And I said, flipping got them to do something. He goes, oh, no. This guy needed survival technique and not them. I'm like, oh, my God. The only ambulance that came free was a transport ambulance. It didn't even have a damn tourniquet in it.
Oh, no.
It had nothing. My bag got raped. There was nothing left in it. So I go with this kid in. The medic was from Poland. His English wasn't great. He didn't know how to apply direct pressure to the femoral artery. We figured all that out between there and the 25-minute run to the hospital. We get in.
Mm-hmm.
Other point for this story, really weird stuff. We unload. We get into the trauma bay. And bear in mind, I'm not in a uniform. I'm in a T-shirt, a pair of shorts, and a pair of flip-flops.
Mm-hmm.
I am not the picture of anything. And the doc goes, who's giving me report? The paramedic is like, his mouth's opening and closing, but nothing's coming out. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, doc, this is what happened. This is what I did. This is what I didn't do. He arrived, pulled out my supraglottic, got a smack in the back of the knee. I put the thing back in. I said, and we came here. Okay. Do we know any history on the patient? Not a sodden thing, except he shouldn't have been where he was. And so they start to take his clothes off, do all the trauma stuff, actually get access to some IV veins because the medic that was with me couldn't do that apparently. I didn't care. He just needed to be breathing and have a fucking pulse when I got him there, and I was done. And the guy in the front did learn how to drive super fast with me screaming, put your foot down. I said, you've got lights and sirens for a fucking reason. Put your foot down. Do not take 35 minutes to get to the hospital. So it was about 15 minutes into everything happening in the trauma bay that the doc finally looked at me and he went, who the hell are you? I said, what do you mean, who am I? I said, I'm the idiot you've been talking to for the last 15 minutes. He goes, but you're not in a uniform. I said, no shit, Sherlock. I was going for hot chocolate. He goes, well, what's your qualifications? I said, oh, you're bothered about that now. I said, you didn't ask me that 15 minutes ago. He's like, well, I might need to know. I said, I'm an EMT with the Irish Red Cross and an instructor. He's like, shit, I think I need to go back to EMT school with the Irish Red Cross. I'm like, this is not relevant. In the meantime, behind him, they're cutting up the leg of the trousers to get the trousers off the patient. Best trick ever seen. They lift up, I mean, the poor paramedic didn't agree, but they lift up, I'm gory. They lift up the leg of his trousers, and the trouser held was in the shape of his leg. And as they peeled it back to see the leg, there was nothing there. There was a bone.
Yeah.
The paramedic beside me turned the same color as his uniform, green. I could see his legs buckle. A trainee nurse walked in, saw them do this, pulled the trouser back. He turned green. I said, Doc, you catch him, I'll catch him. It's hilarious. And then when we finally got the two of them out the door and sat them down on chairs, he looks at me again, and he looks at me up from the head down to the feet. And the next thing, he starts panic stations, and he calls the charge nurse, and he's like, bring the wash, bring the scrub. I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with this lad? She's got blood on her feet. And he's literally trying to grab my foot out from under me to scrub my toenail. I'm like, fuck off. Jesus Christ, you have a patient dying in there. Go away.
Why did he focus on that?
I didn't ask him. I ran with the charge nurse because I was like, I can't. I said, is he always like that? She said, I've no idea. She goes, I don't know.
I have no idea.
It's we do that a lot. It's like the bless you. It's like bless their cotton socks. You know, it's like no idea. Mm-mm. So that was the funny of that. The poor bugger who landed on the railing.
Yes, there's an education point to that, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna stick something up your butt, like I know this wasn't a choice thing, but if you're gonna stick something up your butt, make sure it has a flare at the base so that you can pull it out when you're done.
Exactly.
Educational tip for the day,
and
guys.
that it's not connected in concrete to something else.
There you go. Yep.
Because there's vibrations that you pay for with a battery, and there's vibrations that you get with a saw. They're not the same.
Yeah, they are not.
So they had, you talk about like firemen. We had two firemen like try to support this guy's feet so as his weight, it was wedged. There was no way we could just yank him up off of it. So they had to cut the railing. We're an agricultural country, so stuck pigs squeal. He squealed. Oh God, it was. And we felt so bad for him, but there was nothing we could do. Had to be cut each side, and it had to be cut along the bottom. And then we had to figure out how the hell we were going to get him into the hospital. So yeah, whilst they are not EMTs, they usually end up using their basic skills more often than not. Because that particular day, it was a solid, we were finish cutting and they were disentangling the pieces when the ambulance came. And you know how long that takes because you have to stabilize and then you have to cut and then you have to stabilize and then we have to support him. If I had the drugs that day in the bag, I might have taken them, let alone given them to him. It was terrible. And of course, you have to be aware that you try to minimize the noise of the patient because you're in a small town.
Yeah, you're you're traumatizing everybody else.
And I mean, you've got the gory buggers who come out for everything. But you've the kids that are, 3 doors up and asleep, wondering, is the banshee coming for them? For your listeners, a banshee is the pre-warner of death in Irish mythology. And when she screams and you hear it, your sphincters pucker. And you go, fuck, who's going to die? But yeah, so you don't want that happening to little kids. We live our heritage and our lineage and our folklore. So yeah, so that was the poor fire brigade's night.
Well, good. I'm glad that they're at least getting their use out of their tools.
Yeah, I mean the car wrecks and stuff like that are awful, and I would not want their job, to be fair. When they're dealing with all of that, a lot of the time it's the young or the old,
Yeah.
So
no, it's true.
And I wouldn't want to be the police officers that have to go and do the door to door. That's, it's very difficult.
Yeah, the death notifications are definitely something I think that we can work on as a community. I don't think we get enough training, but
no.
I talked with Alexandra in one of my last episodes, and she actually does a class for death notifications that is really interesting. It's a really good class. Highly suggest it. But you have kind of turned into this like peer-to-peer program manager. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I'd love to. So, quick background, don't give a busy woman nothing to do. I injured myself during COVID, just coming out over the peak. We weren't really coming out, but over the peak. And I, as a result, needed a full hip replacement.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah,
Ouch.
yeah, I was not. That brings your mortality to you. So my patient was out of hospital in 10 days. Me, not so quick. So it took 3 months before they could schedule everything and get everything organized and sorted out. And in that time, I was on light duty and I was working the tents. In New Jersey, we did a lot of the vaccinations in the hospital systems, in the tents and car parks. I'm sure they did the same everywhere. I worked like a dog through the worst of it. And so when I got injured, it was like I had a lot of issues because I felt like I was letting my team down because I wasn't still working. And at the same point in time, my body was like, this was the only way to stop you. And so I had some release work and shit to do with myself. And at the time, everybody was talking about, oh, the heroes of healthcare. Well, that's no fucking good. That's nothing. There's no substance behind that. There's no hand or set of arms to hug you because you feel like shit because you've had to walk away from another body on a floor in a house because there's no room in the morgue because you can't bring them to the hospital. You can't even offer that support, and I'm like, you people just need to shut up because you're flapping your mouths and doing nothing.
Yeah.
So I was involved in mental health. Like I was the critical illness and stress liaison person for the Irish Red Cross for motorsport in Ireland and Rally Ireland when they came in, or World Rally when it came into Ireland. So I've been involved in mental health for many, many, many years. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm looking at everything and I'm like, there is no real support. What are we doing? We're drinking ourselves into stupor. One of my best friends was like, I'm on 3 bottles of whiskey a week. I think I have a fucking problem. I said, I think you need to take some fucking time off.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only way to get to sleep was a couple of shots. And they were getting larger and larger. And then we're going unconscious. We're getting up. We're going back to work. But we don't have our families around. We're stricken in a garage or at the back door of a house. You're throwing everything into a washing machine. And it was gone past being a novelty.
Yeah.
Way past. So I'm like, buy cheaper whiskey, you won't drink so much. So I decided somebody needed to stand up and do something. Enough was enough. All of the fancy titles and all of the fancy bullshit wasn't real. And all the fancy flyers. Oh, we're here at the end of the phone for you. So what do you do at the end of the phone for me? You listen to me for 5 minutes. Where do you send me? What do you do for me? Nothing. Because 90% of the fucking therapists were gone.
Yeah.
They shut up shop for COVID. Small-minded. They could have made a fucking fortune if they stayed going on Zoom. But they didn't. So, not my monkey. So, I'm like, I gotta find something. In Jersey, they launched a huge, first responder thing, and they're great. They're great in the moment. But it doesn't get to the root cause of the problem. It doesn't help change the shit that you've got covered all over you because you've been doing this for so long, and this is just another layer that's one layer too many. There's a saying is the straw that broke the camel's back or something like that. We were in the middle of it. The camels were on their knees. So I had to do something. So my father was a master practitioner of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is an amazing communication tool. And it helps you just by changing small words in your vocabulary and understanding. Example, like when you've had a really great night out and you're telling somebody about it, and you're like all excited and enthusiastic, and it's, the best thing ever, and all the crazy things you got up to, and until you couldn't remember anymore, and you just gloss over that bit.
Yeah.
And then you talk about, and then you lead into the next thing you're going to talk about with the word but. That's 3 letters. Your unconscious mind totally negates all the positivity that you've just talked about because but is a negator.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the next thing, and then after 5 minutes, you think, I still feel happy about the fact I went out the other night. That's why. That's what neurolinguistics is. It's helping you. It's so much more, but that's like the short, condensed version of how I can explain it. That once you look at what you're doing and saying, and you change one or two small things, you can totally change your whole outlook, perception, all of it. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough with what we were dealing with. EMDR, I had friends that did it and were like freaking out. They didn't like it. They didn't
It's
feel
not for
safe.
everybody.
It exactly. So, and listen, what I found and what I created, I'm not God. I'm not taking that title. Way above my pay grade. And I'm not aspirin. I don't cure everything.
Yeah.
So all I wanted was something that people had options with. I found a process called mental emotional release, which was created by a doctor of integrative psychology called Dr. Matt James, who I personally trained with. And it's absolutely mind blowing. It releases negative emotions, limiting beliefs. It takes all the shit that you've accumulated since you were born, puts it in a bag, ties the lid, tuck it into the bin, and live your best life. It is that empowering and life transforming. I have worked with, I mean, it's clinically trialed, so they couldn't even, the other things are evidence based. This was clinically trialed. The clinical trials were against cognitive behavioral therapy for severe clinical depression and severe trauma-based PTSD, Army services. It left CBT sitting in the sand.
Wow.
The trials are, it was also trialed with or used with children at risk out in one of the African war-torn countries, where they took a couple of the child soldiers and got rid of all of the programming using this process and enabled them to actually go in and infiltrate and help those children to get their lives back. Phenomenal work. So I saw a 3-minute video and I went, that's the shit I need. Doesn't require drugs, doesn't require reliving the story. They don't have to believe in anything. It's not religious based. They can do whatever they like with it, but it will help as long as they are prepared to release fear, anger, sadness, hurt, shame, and guilt. They're good. I'm like, I can make this work. So, second week of May, I went and did my basic NLP. I had my surgery on the 2nd of June. Third week of July, I flew to California. I spent 2 weeks intense training to become a master practitioner of NLP, MER, the actual full process, mental emotional release, and clinical hypnotherapy. Passed with flying colors. Came back to New Jersey into my hospital system. And I said, this is what I want to do with the EMS department. My boss said, they won't buy into it. You're wasting your time, but knock yourself out. And I was like, okay, who won't buy into it? Why won't they buy into it? Tell me more. Because you know what? When people want to put boulders in your way, they're the greatest bricks to build your path that you can ever find.
Yeah.
So everything I was told wouldn't work. I went out and I found a way around, up, down, or underneath. And as of January of this year, the program that I created, which is NLP, so the peer-to-peer program, has a wellness buddy component that are people who, so for instance, you mentioned you've got 24-hour shift coming up. You would say to somebody on your 24-hour shift, hey, be my wellness buddy this shift. It requires no qualifications. Your job, if you're being the wellness buddy or they're being your wellness buddy, make sure you drink your water. Make sure that you get a poop 5 minutes, that you get your food. Your wellness buddy is there to help you stay accountable. Let's walk around the fire station 3 times, not in 110-degree heat and not in -20, but whenever you can. Okay, yeah. There's plenty of other times during. Listen, I protect me, but that's accountability. Then there's NLP peer supporters who are trained in basic NLP, and that basic NLP has so many tools that take anything from 10 minutes to maybe an hour and 20 minutes to totally change difficult situations into non-difficult situations. And then the mental emotional release part, which I take care of because I have that honed, and it's 5.5 hours because of healthcare. People need to do everything in one day because you can't get, like, your shifts are all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And there are breaks, and it is so powerful. I mean, I've never had anybody say, well, that was a waste of time.
That's
I
good.
have had them say, that's weird, or what the fuck did we just do? Or why do I feel 10 pounds lighter since I walked in here? Or that was freaky. Or I feel a bit spacey. Those are the most common. Or I wasn't expecting that. Or I didn't expect that. Those are because it's all your stuff. It's nothing to do with me. And it's a do with process. So it's not something that I am doing to people. It's their process.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the most common things that people have said. And always, thank you, which is my payment, because they are able. So it's values based and it's goal based as well. Releasing the negative emotions, limiting beliefs. Also, we work with values. So values pre and values post, because when you have no shit, your values are so much more clearer and easier. And also knowing your values and having them clearly defined is really important, because it's important in all areas of life. Um, and then you set a goal, a SMART goal. It's tweaked. It's not like your Google SMART goals, and it's similar, but there are certain tweaks in it because of the process. And then 2 weeks later, they come back for a follow up for an hour, really to cement in the wins, how much movement an action they've taken towards their goal. Because if you don't celebrate wins, then your unconscious thinks, this was all, they didn't really mean this.
That
They
makes
might have
sense.
wanted. Yeah. So, and it all works with your unconscious mind, so it's permanent. It's not like I'm telling myself I'm forgetting this. No, you're unconscious. I love that piece in that film, Bruce Almighty, where what's his name? Morgan Freeman opens the filing cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
That's your unconscious mind in a visual. Everything that you do, every memory, every thought is all in that filing cabinet. And what you do with MER is you take the shit and you go, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. And then you close the door. And it's powerful. Also, it's maybe not for everybody. People may want conventional therapy. I don't want to do conventional therapy. So I created a bridge between the program and the behavioral health team within the hospital system. And we fast track people. So if people come to peer program and say, okay, I think I need help, or I need to explore the help that's available, what do you have that's not this? And so then we explain, you can go be fast tracked into behavioral health. The guarantee there is one therapist to care. So till you decide or they decide that you're good, you have that therapist. Also education. If you don't click with your therapist, you don't have to keep them. You can ask for a different one. Very important.
It is very
also,
important.
The behavioral health team reevaluated what they did for employees, because we're a different patient to the public. So they created prescription writing only. They created weekly, bi-weekly, monthly Zoom or telehealth, whatever you call that thing. They created, packages. And I helped with training their therapists on how to engage EMS and anybody who works in that. We work to set the protocols, to instructions, to things we have to tick off. If a medic goes in and they say, well, you might need to come for 2 sessions or you might need to come for 6, they ain't coming back.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. You don't know what you're talking about. I either need 2 or I need 6. What the fuck do you want? They turn up and you say, I need you for 6 sessions. We'll evaluate at the end of 6 sessions. They come, they're good by 4, and you tell them, I think you're good. I think you're okay. You're a genius, because they're getting out 2 sessions early.
Yep.
And they may come back again.
Yep.
It's all in the words. It's all in how you present it. So that's what I created. And January this year, they rolled it across 6 hospitals, 160 ambulatory sites, 8,000 staff.
Wow. That's really cool.
I didn't actually realize how cool it was. I know that sounds ridiculous. I've been so much like the bull or the goat banging my fucking head on a wall. It wasn't until I stepped out. And people were like, how long did it take you? How many years? I'm like, 3, 2 with EMS and this year. And they're like, you sure you're in healthcare? I'm like, yeah. I
Yeah.
did everything. I created the brochures, I created the awareness, I go around to departments, I do talks, I do all of that. So I stepped out of my paramedic role in that system into the peer-to-peer manager role. But I still am a paramedic in another system because, you know what, God forbid I wouldn't beat my body to death.
Yeah. You're crazy. So do you have plans on expanding this?
I have created this as a program that can generically be modeled into any system. I would love to get it into fire systems, into other health systems around the states. That my big picture, if you were to hand me a magic wand and say, what do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with it in the next 3 to 5 years? I would say I want it in at least 7 more states. I want the spider effect, the trickle effect to go through the professions, not for fame or glory. We can become professional and promote ourselves when we're not held back by baggage. 80% of us come from somewhere else. Law, services, military, paramedics, EMTs, or they've been in this for so long that the baggage is too heavy. When you can help people be empowered and actually step into their own right and feel that joy again of doing what they love instead of the fucking weight of the everything else, it changes how they deliver medicine. It changes how they feel about themselves. And all of a sudden they're open to doing things a bit differently, or to creating other opportunities, or to just seeing stuff that's sometimes right in front of you. But it's so fucking hard when your windshield is covered in gunk and there's no washer fluid. MER is the washer fluid. This program can be dropped into any healthcare system, and getting it out there is going to be my next goal. You have to celebrate your wins at 90%, because then you set your next goal. And when you set your next goal, you're always striving towards something else. So your unconscious always has a momentum it's chasing.
Well, I'm in New Mexico and I know you're in New Jersey, so I look forward to seeing that program rolling into New Mexico at some point.
I would be delighted. I will take you out for dinner.
Oh, yes, let's do that. It is a date.
We'll all go. We'll create chaos.
Yes, that's the best way to be.
And I love food. I love all types of food. So.
Yes, the Mexican food here is amazing.
Mm-hmm. I could definitely do some of that. Yeah. It's so funny. Somebody was talking about Mexican food and they started talking about Taco Bell. And I was like, okay. That's like saying corned beef and cabbage. Yeah, that's not Irish. But you work that. That's fine.
You work with that, yeah.
My daughter went to school in New Jersey in high school, and she had some Mexican friends. Oh my God, did they know how to cook? And yeah, so I like authentic food.
Yes, authentic is the way to go. I agree.
Yeah.
Taco Bell is
not
authentic. You just know every time you eat it, you're gonna have a stomach ache later.
It's actually very good. It took over from X-Lax.
Yes.
Or whatever that thing is. Yeah. Crazy.
Do you feel comfortable sharing like one of the worst stories that you've ever had? Like something that affected you so personally and deeply?
I always have difficulty with this, only because I feel like it's the question we try to avoid at all times.
That's why I try to expose it.
I know, I get it. I'm happy to share. And it's not the worst as in gruesome or anything like that, but it was the most impactful of my career. In fact, it was what launched my official career. I was educated, my parents divorced when I was young, and I was educated in England. I met my husband, he's from Dublin, ex-husband, and we got married. And when I was pregnant with my third child, my daughter, We moved back to Ireland. My grandparents were aging, and I wanted to be near them. And I've always had a huge sense of responsibility. I was born with a fucking boulder the size of whatever that thing is where all the faces are, on top of me. And I moved back and I bought a piece of land next door to my grandparents and we built a house. But we always used to go over to my granny's for Sunday lunch because the woman could cook and everybody got fed. So my daughter was born, we moved into the house and we were there probably, she was toddling, so she had to be 2. So her next one up was 2 years older than her. And then the next one was 4 years older than that. So he was old enough to keep an eye on them. They were young enough not to be able to run too far away. We all had Sunday lunch. It was a beautiful day. The windows were open. The house faced the road. The kids had gone out into the yard. We lived in the countryside. We had a neighbor. The next neighbor was a half a mile that way up the road, and the next neighbor in the other direction was another half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. We were sitting in the front room, the adults chatting. The kids had gone out. And the next thing I heard, and I fucking don't even remember how I got from where I was sitting to the back door. My grandmother was in the back kitchen. She does not remember how she overtook me because she flew through me and she was in the middle of the yard. Okay. Men move slower.
They do.
My grandfather was green looking and he was coming out. And as I made it to the door, I was watching for my grandmother because she was like, she didn't even see the steps. And I saw in my peripheral vision a motorbike on its side past the gateway. And you know that saying, my life flashed before my eyes?
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking true when the shit hits the fan. Because the only thought in my head was one of the kids got hit by a car.
Yeah.
And I'm screaming for the kids. Manan's screaming for the kids. The kids are not fucking answering because they're kids.
Yeah.
And we're losing our shit. And in fairness, the way the house was built, there was a lot of outhouses. So they were around the back and they may not have initially heard us. They did, but they didn't anyway. So we cut them that slack for the rest of the time. Sometimes till I get drunk and I fight with them and then I tell them that what they did to me.
Yeah.
Because I swear I got fucking grey hairs overnight over that. Anyway, we see the 3 children. So now everybody can actually breathe. It's amazing how long you can hold your breath when you don't know you're holding your breath. And I didn't have time then to go into the I want to throw up or thank anything. I just hugged each of them and told them to get the fuck in the house and shut the door. Because I knew whatever was going on the road, I now had to go and look at and take care of. I don't know why I decided that, but I've always been like that.
Yeah.
So the 2 men are finally, getting to the back door as the children are crossing the yard. And I'm like, oh, fucking take your fucking time. So now I'm heading to the gate. I'm halfway across the yard. He goes, what's the number for the ambulance? I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. So at home, it's 999 or 112. Pick one, just dial. So he disappears into the house. I go out. There's a body face down in a ditch. And at least a third of his leg is degloved on the inside. No helmet. The helmet is 800 feet up the road, actually at the top of my driveway, just sitting, beautifully parked. The bike is now upright in the trees at the top of the ditch. And I'm like, So I look down, feel for a pulse. He has a pulse. I'm like, well, you need a fucking airway, bud. So I have to dig out because he has literally mouth-eaten like 2 inches of dirt. So I said to my nan, get me a piece of cardboard out of the shed. She got me some cardboard. I cleared all the shit out of his mouth. I slid the cardboard underneath. I didn't have a collar. I had no way of making a collar, and there was no way I could turn it. Between what I had as resources and me, myself, and I, there wasn't enough. So then my ex-husband comes out and he goes, they want to know what you need them for. There was a lot of fucks flown.
I imagine there was.
The fucks had fucks and they had wings, and it was blue. So I get them sorted out. I'm like, The phone comes out of the cradle. Bring it fucking with you because you're driving me insane. So the kid starts to come round. And as he starts to come round, I'm like trying to explain to him, you need to be very still, trying to keep him, almost using like a trance-like talk to him, just to keep him as cool as I can, because I have nothing. Like, and I'm just like talking to him. And then I realize he's my fucking neighbor's son.
Oh, no.
Who lost her other son to suicide 2 years beforehand.
Oh, no.
And my heart went into my arse. And I'm like, fuck. I don't have any training. I don't have any fucking wherewithal except the seat of my pants here. And I fucking useless help. And I looked at him, I went, don't die. Just keep breathing.
Don't.
We can do a lot as long as you keep breathing. And he's like, okay. I'm like, yep. He goes, I'm a diabetic. I said, I know you are. Don't worry about that right now. Just keep breathing. So we did. We breathed in. We breathed out. We breathed in. We breathed out. The police showed up. Oh, you have to understand another thing about Ireland. It might take 45 minutes for a fucking ambulance, but the Bush Telegraph works 3 times faster. And there was about 15 cars and 20 people by the second time I looked up. That's why the fucks took fucks. I had people in Wellington boots up to their knees coming from fishing going, I'll pick him up for you, love. Fuck off. It was ridiculous. You know when you talk about needing 3 people out of 1 person? Me, myself, and I were all working overtime. It was absolutely nuts. I looked up at one point and I saw my local sergeant, who's across the bridge, which is another state in American terms. It's another county in Ireland. And I'm like, Oric, thank fuck you turned up. What the fuck are you doing there? Get rid of these fucking people. And he's like, it's out of my jurisdiction. I said, if I get up off my knees, you'll be out of your jurisdiction. And he's like, you can't talk to me like that. I said, are you fucking kidding me? I'm going to strangle you myself. So I had to take a few deep breaths, had to sort myself out, make sure he was still breathing. I turned back and there's another fucker trying to pick him up. I'm like, go away. So I said to Porrick, you don't come over here and stand by my shoulder and keep me sane. I am literally going to be needing arrested. He got rid of as much as he could. I continued with what I was doing. I got a plastic bag because that's all I had. And I covered the leg to try to keep it away, you know, stop the dirt coming in.
Yeah.
I put a blanket on top. And this is all gut instinct. I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Apparently it looked very professional, but I had no idea. I'm just doing what felt right. And I keep talking to him and I keep talking to him. And then somebody says, the car that hit him's over here. I'm like, okay. Well, they must have had a driver. Where's the fucking driver? He's here. I look up. It's my ex-husband's uncle.
Oh, no.
In his 80s.
No.
And he's got one fucking eye. The other eye is glass. He never goes anywhere without his brother. I said, there has to be another person in the car. Nope. Nobody else in the car. I'm like, something's fishy. The brother got out and legged it down the road, and the neighbor down the road took him to town, to the pub.
What?
Because they both had a few. So that way, he was in the bar. Don't even go there. So then the uncle is being minded at the side of the road. And my granny goes, we'll bring him in the house. I said, if you give him alcohol, I personally will take your brandy for the next 12 months and you won't get a single drop. And she looked at me and she went, don't be so harsh. I said, do not give him fucking alcohol. You know why.
Oh my gosh.
So she brings him in. She says, I can't give it to you. She said, if that one tells me like that, she goes, she will cut my throat in the night. She goes, no, I'm not giving you any drink. So my granddad comes out. He goes, Lorraine, let me give him a beer. I said, if you give him 1 drop of alcohol, I'll cut you too. Do not give him any fucking alcohol. You know what's going on here. You're not doing it. This kid could lose his fucking leg. He could lose his life. You're not doing it. So, and at that point, I hadn't realized who it was on the floor. About 10 minutes later, somebody gets out of a car, comes over, has a fucking hysterical fit, drops to their knees screaming in the middle of the road, and it's his cousin. I'm like, oh shit. So now I'm like trying to get the face, and I'm like, Paddy, is that you? Did you not know it was me? No, I didn't. Fuck, now I gotta go tell your mother. Don't tell Mammy. Bud, half the fucking county's been here. Somebody has to tell her before they get to her. So, biggest mistake ever. I sent my ex-husband out with strict instructions not to allow her or the husband out the door of the house. What does he do? I know this woman. I love this woman. She's a fucking asthmatic. She inhales 3 times doing the washing. She falls to her knees in the middle of the fucking road and has a full-on asthma attack. And I'm like, where's her fucking inhalers? Oh my God, you people are killing me. So now my granny has the guy who hit him sitting in one chair and her in the other huffing on her inhalers in the sitting room. I'm like, I'm going to the surgeon. You have to get control of this fucking scene. You're the only law-abiding officer on the place. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely nuts. So eventually, the ambulance crew get there. Do you ever have that comedy program Z Cops?
Mm-mm.
Is it Z Cops? Or is that an English thing? I don't know. Anyway, you know that thing here where you get in one door of the car and everybody runs around and gets out and like 500 people get out of the one car. What's that called? Chinese lanterns?
Yeah, or a clown car, right? Like
yeah, whatever. That thing. That's what the fucking scene was like. And that's what my granny's front room was like. And I was losing my mind. So the fire brigade, the police, not the police, the ambulance crew get there. And I don't know where they drag these poor old dears out of. So they're both at the latter end of their careers. Let's be polite here, because I'm fucking old. So I have to be aware that I'm up there with it. Get out of the truck, get out of the bus, or the rig, whatever you call it here. And they come down the back to me and they open the back doors and they're like, right, so what have we got? I'm like, this is what you have. And I lift the blanket and the wrapping. And one of them legs it to the front of the ambulance. I'm like, where's he gone? I don't know. The other guy looks, oh, he's just throwing up. I'm like, pardon? He goes, yeah, he's clearing it out. You shouldn't have eaten lunch. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I honestly, you know, at one point I thought it was one of those gotcha films, because I am like, and my kids keep coming out because they want to see what Mammy's doing. So they look and they're like, well, we're not going to be able to get a scoop in there. That's a big ditch. I'm like, okay, next suggestion? I suppose we could longboard him. Might be a good idea. Well, how are we going to secure him to the longboard? I'm like, oh dear sweet Jesus. I'm like, how about you just get the damn board and I give you the instructions? And he looks at me and he goes, really? I went, yep. He goes, okay. They get the board. I said, you did see the leg? Yeah. Literally, I'm not joking you, the only thing holding him together was the seams of his leather trousers.
wow.
That was the only thing holding his lower leg to his upper leg. I said, we have to be really careful of the leg. Okay. Thing you need to remember about Ireland, it's a very male dominated. The women rule, but the men like to be seen to be ruling. So they're all pushing and elbowing because now they actually get to move the fucking body. And I'm like, stop! And they look. So I get in the ditch and I take care of the damned leg and we roll him onto the thing. Now the other guy throws up because he wasn't expecting the front side of the leg. I mean, if there's no backside, what the fuck do you think the front side's going to look like? It's not going to be beautiful. I'm like, God help us. I said, I will call the ER. And I said, they will be ready for you. Do not stop for anything. But we need a doctor. We need a doctor. We can't transport this. We need a doctor. I said, trust me. If I couldn't get a doctor here in the length of time it took you to get here, you're not getting a fucking doctor between here and the hospital. Mm-hmm. Put your foot down, burn diesel, get the fuck out of here. And they're like, well, I guess you're the one in charge. So off they go. I'm like, I don't even know. I just was like, I sent all my energy with it. Like, please let him fucking still be alive when he gets there. Then I go back and I have to look at everything else. So then I'm like, right, bones. Because somebody said there was bones on the floor. So I went down and I got my marigold gloves on and I picked up all the bits of his knee. And I went to the door of the car and I'm like, Oh, so I took all the bones out of the door frame of the car and put them in a bag, and I took the sinews and the tendons and I put them in the bag and I wrapped it up and I put it in a bag of ice. And by this stage, there was some dignitary of the police force that had pulled up who was on his way back from some fucking meeting somewhere, I don't know. And I'm like, hey, you can take these to the hospital. These are part of the injured person that you're here nosying about. And his driver went, I'm not touching them. I said, why not? He said, they're human remains. I said, no shit, Sherlock. They belong to the human in the fucking ambulance that just passed you that better have been doing a speed of knots. He's like, I'm not touching that. I said, why not? He said, I don't have any gloves. And I said, okay. I walked right past him to the car, banged on the window. I said, does your braid, I said, on your shoulder, I said, detain you, I said, or stop you from doing your civic duty? The guy looks at me, he goes, no. I said, why does it stop your driver? He goes, I don't understand. I said, these are human remains of the accident victim who is fighting for his life that will repair his leg, and your driver will not take them back to the hospital. He said, yes, he fucking will. I said, good. Open the window a bit further. They can go beside you. I dropped him. I took off me marigolds. I handed him my marigolds. I said, that's in case he's peaky when you get there. This poor kid's mother was having an asthma attack. I went in. I said, we got to take her to the hospital. I said, I can't fucking leave her like this. She's going to lose her mind. So I put her in the car and I drove her to the hospital. This day was very long.
Sounds like a long ass day.
I get to the hospital. I go into I bring her upstairs because I'm very careful about where I put people. And I don't know why. This was before I ever had any training. And I put her where I thought she needed to be. And I went back down to the ED and I said, I want to check on the kid that was brought in, on the person that was at the scene with him. And I knew, because we're all locals. I was born in the fucking hospital. So I knew the nurses and stuff. And one of the girls came out and she said, oh, she said, they told us a nurse was at the scene. I said, I didn't see any nurse. She goes, no, they were talking about you. I says, I'm not a fucking nurse. She goes, don't be so asshole about it. I said, I'm not. I couldn't do your job. You've got your job. I said, no, it's all good. So she goes, yeah. She goes, I have a question. I go, what? She goes, do you make a habit of making friends and influencing people? I'm like, where are we going with the sarcasm? She goes, the assistant chief of police for the state came rolling in here at 90 miles an hour about 10 minutes ago and dropped a bag into the ED and said we had a body it belonged to. I'm like, he didn't. His fucking driver did. She said, yeah, he was an asshole. I said, I know. His asshole's going to get bigger now because I says, I'm going to call the other fucker. I said, because he was an asshole at the scene. So she was like, oh my God, Lorraine, can you create chaos somewhere else? I said, how's the kid? She goes, actually, I have to tell you. They have him in surgery right now and he's going to have a knee because of you. They put, and this is my little claim to fame, they put all the pieces of all the bones that made a complete kneecap, and only one tiny 16th of an inch or something like that piece didn't knit. So to this day, he still has his actual real kneecap and he's walking.
That's cool.
And he's alive.
That's amazing.
And I was constipated for about 4 days. I think I hit the bottle fairly hard around day 2 because it actually hit me what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
And that was when I signed up with the Irish Red Cross, and I started at the bottom and I worked my way right up to the top. There wasn't enough I didn't know or need to know or learn. And then I became a homeopathic practitioner because I figured there's more than one way to skin a cat. And no offense to all cat lovers, it just is a saying at home. It means that there's many ways to do many things.
Yes.
And that's what I do. And exactly, and then it's obviously a genetic flaw because the world's falling apart with COVID. And I'm like, do something that actually helps people. Do something that can make a difference in another person's life. I guess that should be my motto.
And here you are, right?
Yeah, and here I am. So, and I became a citizen last October.
Oh,
So,
that's amazing. That is amazing. Congratulations. I have to give you props because I've never laughed so hard at somebody's like most impactful story. So thank you for that. That it'll be edited out, but I was like seal laughing in the background, trying not to make it so loud.
it's all good. Well, maybe they'll laugh too, and it's all good, you know?
Oh, they definitely will. They definitely will. So I want I want to give you the opportunity, Lorraine, to shout out how people can get a hold of you, or if you want to shout out any other companies that you feel we didn't talk about, or anything in general that we didn't talk about.
Um, my company that anybody can get a hold of me to, even if you just want to ask questions, I love geeking out on this stuff, is called Rewired Life. And if you go to rewiredlife.net, it will take you to my website, and there's a whole booking thing there, or you can email a question or whatever you need to do, and you can see some more. There's more than one person that work for me in my company, and we do Zoom. I work with Zoom with MER as well. I tend to break it up a little bit more if I'm working with Zoom, unless the individual has the full 5.5, 6 hours, 6.5 hours. Um, and so, yeah, if it's a professional inquiry with how do you get this program instigated in your area of work, or if it's you're a chief of a firehouse or whatever, and you just need some help with getting your people a little bit more balanced and help them get some techniques on how to offload, I'm more than happy to have conversations around that, because I think empowering us and empowering ourselves is the way that we can keep our industry fresh and not burnt out. I would love to see us not burnt out. With respect to my employers, I think I'm just going to leave them. They hear this, they're all going to know it's me anyway. Obviously, my start was the Irish Red Cross, so I'm always grateful to them. It's very different there to here. In New Jersey, the Red Cross seems to do a lot of blood drives. I'm not quite sure how they run across the rest of the United States. But in Ireland, we are very much a support to the 911, because you know it as that. We do a lot of community outreach. We do a lot of immigrant reconnecting with families and stuff like that. So it's a very diverse plethora of stuff that the Red Cross offers. And I had an amazing time working for and with them when I did. I was one of their lead instructors for many, many years. And I also helped them run the international first aid events competitions 2 years in a row. I was part of the team of lunatics that facilitated that in Ireland. We had so much fun. Oh my God, if you're really into first aid and knowing your shit, it's a bit like the paramedic symposiums and all of that go on here.
Mm-hmm.
But they bring like 26 countries together, and they just it's nuts. And the after parties are to die for. So anyway, and you make friends all over the world. You can go anywhere in the world and go, hey, I'm here. They'll either come see you or they'll run. There's only two options. So yeah, other than that, rewiredlife.net is my web address. And yeah, happy to help anybody or reach out. And yeah.
That is phenomenal. And I honestly, thank you for coming out. I appreciate it so much. You are a phenomenal human being. You have an amazing story, and I'm so proud of who you are and where you are today.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I forget sometimes that other people see you differently to how you see yourself. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have to celebrate your wins.
Yes. I have to listen to myself.
Yes.
This has been an amazing podcast. Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
I've not laughed this hard in a long time, so I appreciate you coming on, and I enjoy doing this so much. And for the people who are listening, if you've had an absolutely phenomenal time listening as much as I have, please, please, please don't forget to like and follow, subscribe, share with your friends. We are out to empower more people. We want to get these burnout rates down. We want to help people in a fairly non-educational way. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate you coming out. Lorraine, again, it's been absolutely phenomenal. Please feel free to reach out if you need anything at all.
And you too.
Yes. Oh, I will be.
We have a connection now.
Yes. I appreciate you so much. And I hope you enjoy your dinner party, and I hope you have a good day.
You too. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show and want to show your support, be sure to check out the Noon merch store on Bonfire. Find the link in the description below. Also, if you have any guest suggestions or if you're interested in being a guest on Noon yourself, visit the website at www.samspursuit.com to get in touch.